Welcome back to Deep Six Wrestling. I'm your host, Just Pat, and this is another edition of 5 Matches to Watch, the show in which I will be discussing 5 matches that happened this past week that I think you should check out. The only stipulation is that there can only be one match per show. So without further ado, let's get started. The first match on this week's edition of 5 Matches to Watch is from last night's NXT episode, and it features Keith Lee and the finest, Kona Reeves. Now, truth be told, I've never really been a fan of Kona Reeves. I honestly think he's pretty terrible. But that being said, I think the match he had with Keith Lee last night is without a doubt the best match he's had in NXT. He came out looking much better than he went into that, and honestly, I never really realized how big he was. They said he was 6'8", and honestly, just once you see him next to Keith Lee, it really stands out that Kona Reeves is a big guy, and he really came off looking much better than I ever expected, I would say, about Kona Reeves. He didn't really do anything too flashy, but just the aggression and just his general ring work was really impressive for the most part. And then speaking about Keith Lee, I believe this is his first match back since getting injured a couple months ago. And it was a real shame that him and Dominik Dijakovic, not Dijak, of course not, Dominik Dijakovic, their feud was getting off to a really hot start, but then both guys got injured, Keith Lee first, and then Dominik. And it was a real shame. I was really hoping that they'd get on TakeOver, but we ended up getting Matt Riddle versus Roderick Strong. I'm assuming that was the match that replaced it. And let's just say it was pretty solid. But, it's a real shame that Keith Lee and Dijakovic got injured when they did. Both guys are incredibly talented. I've been a fan of Dijak since he was in ROH when I saw him live a couple times. Incredible star in the making, of course. But Keith Lee, for the most part, has not really done much in NXT since he arrived. It's been kind of weird. He lost a couple of big matches to Lars Sullivan. I'm pretty sure it was Lars. And it's been kind of interesting to see how his run has come. But it seems like, the time off really, I guess, absence makes the heart grow fonder. The fans were really receptive of him. And he looked like a star. He just came off in incredible fashion. Charisma out the wazoo. I'm on the Keith Lee train, bask in his glory, all that jazz. He looked great. I'm excited to see what they do with him. I guess you could, if you really wanted to, you could do Velveteen versus Keith Lee for the North American title, and I'd be okay with that. Both guys are incredibly talented, and I think it would be a really good spot to put Keith Lee in right now, because I think the main title is going to be a bit complicated come Brooklyn, or Toronto, I guess, for SummerSlam time. But, Keith Lee versus Velveteen Dream, I think, could really be something that is honestly quite incredible. And I think it would be really good to see Keith Lee in that role. Right, so on last week's episode, I talked about Cesaro and Ricochet's really short match on Raw, and not really shocking, but they had another match on Raw this week. This is now the third in their series since Money in the Bank. And again, also not shocking. These two just absolutely tore it down. They give them a little more time than they did last week, and I think it really showed. Both guys, again, similar to Keith Lee versus Ricochet, both guys came out looking like absolute stars. The one downfall of this match, and there's a big one, is the crowd. I think it was Austin, Texas, and they were it was awful, just straight up terrible. I don't know what was wrong with that crowd. I didn't watch all of Raw. I'm not gonna lie, but Jesus Christ, they were dead. And it's Ricochet versus Cesaro. It's not like they're like nobodies. Like, people love Ricochet, and Cesaro is also a pretty, people like Cesaro, people like The Bar. I don't know what the hell was wrong with the crowd, but that being said, these guys made the most of it, and they went out and had themselves a really solid TV match. It lasted through 2 commercials, and it was great stuff. I think Ricochet and Cesaro definitely seem to be trending towards what looks to be kind of a best-of-7 series, similar to the one that Cesaro and Sheamus had prior to forming The Bar. And I'm not going to complain about it. I'm not going to watch Raw live, but it's definitely something I'll be checking out after Raw airs, because these two are incredible stars. There was a bit of sloppiness in this one, but they made up for it with some really nice spots. There was nothing like the uppercut from last week where Ricochet sold it like he was dead, but it was still really good. Ricochet came off doing a lot of flippy stuff, that's his thing. But I'm interested to see where this goes. I don't know if it's going to be a fully formed feud that makes it onto a pay-per-view like Stomping Ground at the end of the month, but I don't know. It's interesting. They're both really talented guys, and I really hope that they don't just get lost in the shuffle or get thrown onto the 24/7 title, because that would be an absolute travesty, like it has been for somebody like Cedric Alexander, a guy who has so much talent and just is not on TV besides to jump on people with the 24/7 title. And I really hope this isn't the case for Cesaro and Ricochet in the coming months, because I feel like everybody would be disappointed by that. And it really would suck if Ricochet just became a guy on Raw. And honestly, the same goes for Cesaro, because both guys, again, I really can't stress that enough, just how great they are. I know Cesaro is not like the most charismatic fellow, but he is one of the best workers they have in the company and has shown shades of just being special. Special is probably the best word for it. Either way, check it out if you haven't. I don't think it's on the Hulu edition. Again, I'm pretty sure it got cut, but you can find it online. You can find it on YouTube, or you can find it on a streaming site. Either way, definitely go out of your way to try and see the Cesaro Ricochet match, because it's definitely worth checking out. All right, so I know that this is a match that technically happened last week, but the show does happen on a Thursday, and so I couldn't really talk about it last week. But from NXT TakeOver 25, of course, got to throw the number on there, Matt Riddle and Roderick Strong opened the show in what was personally my favorite match of the night. I know Adam Cole and Gargano is definitely going to be a lot of people's favorite, but that got off to a little too slow of a start for me personally. I just really, really thought Strong and Riddle just tore the house down, especially for a match that had probably the least amount of story in it than the other matches on the card, and I thought that was really impressive. And it wasn't just a spot fest. Like, it was a nice and really well-executed match. I think both guys have incredible chemistry with each other, and they just absolutely killed each other. Roderick Strong, I don't even know. That man is absolutely incredible. He took some brutal spots. Same for Riddle. Both guys just absolutely workhorses during that match, and they really made it work. I was really excited to see how good they worked together. I didn't know that they had good chemistry. They have good chemistry with most people that they work with, the two of them separately, but they really clicked together, and again, it made for one of the more memorable show openers for a TakeOver. And I think that definitely people will look back at this as probably an underrated gem of this year when it comes time for Match of the Year candidates. I don't think it's going to be a Match of the Year per se, but I think people will talk about it saying, oh, remember TakeOver 25? Riddle and Strong actually killed it in the opener, rather than just talking about the ladder match, or talking about Cole versus Gargano, or Breeze versus Dream. I don't think anybody's going to talk about Shayna Io and say that's like a match of the year or a really special match. Both girls have had better matches and better matches with each other. But Riddle versus Strong was definitely my favorite match of the show. Again, it's still not probably in my top 5 matches of the year, but it was definitely something to check out. And if you haven't done it yet, it's on the network. Go do it. It's the first match. You don't even have to skip around. Just watch that. Have your mind blown, because it is fantastic. Coming in at number 2 this week, you know me, I have to give some love to 205 Live. So, Drew Gulak and Akira Tozawa, probably 2 of the most underrated stars in the company across any brand, tore it down in probably one of my favorite matches of the year. I don't know what it is about both guys, but anytime they've worked together, they have just magic chemistry together. They absolutely always go out there and do their best. And Drew Gulak, let's just talk about him for a second. This man is on probably one of the hottest streaks in his career, and it is so good. They're doing something with him, and it looks like he's definitely headed toward the title shot against Tony Nese, and I am so here for it. He showed shades of aggression that he hasn't shown in quite some time during this match, and he had his hair slicked back. He was all in black. He absolutely killed Noam Dar, who's also a heel now, and it's just like, I don't know what's going on, but it's definitely something to look forward to if you're a big fan of 205 Live, NXT, because he's appearing over there too now, or just Drew Gulak in general. Definitely one of the more underrated stars in WWE, or NXT technically. And Tozawa is definitely also on that list of underrated stars. You know, people always kind of forget about him, or they see him and they don't really take him as a credible threat anymore. But Tozawa has definitely been one of the mainstays of 205 since he debuted. I don't really know what it is about him that I definitely think it's kind of a language barrier type thing, but he always delivers in his matches, and fans always kind of get behind him. Obviously some of them are just chanting for like the silly ha 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 noises he makes, but like he's always delivering quality matches, and I really can't hate on the guy. And him and Gulak went out there, and honestly, I believe it was in Texas again, but Last week's show had a completely dead crowd for 205 Live. This week's show was actually pretty decent. The crowd was into it, not like chanting "this is awesome" or anything, or really cheering for either guy per se, but they were doing the clapping thing. They were cheering for big spots. They were reacting, and I think the guys really went out there and turned a crowd that was kind of meh for 205 as it started and got them into it, and that was really nice to see because Gulak and Tozawa both deserve that kind of response. And just as a whole, definitely go check this match out. If you don't watch 205 Live, you're missing out. Easily one of the top 2 shows for WWE. Probably my number 1. Just especially in terms of a wrestling show, it's just top to bottom fantastic week in and week out. But this match was absolutely incredible. I think this is probably Gulak's best match this year, maybe. I know him versus Kushida last week was on this list, and that was really good, but I think this tops it. And I'm not just saying that because Gulak won. I think this was a better match, and I think it's definitely worth checking out if you haven't done so. So head to the network, go to 205 Live. Lorcan versus Daivari was also on the show. Not nearly as good as this. Definitely check out Gulak Tozawa. You won't regret it at all. The final match on my list this week is Shingo Takagi versus Will Ospreay from the Best of the Super Juniors finals for New Japan. And I know a lot of people are probably expecting me to just throw Jon Moxley versus Juice Robinson on here, but Shingo versus Will was definitely the better of the 2 matches, and this would also probably be in consideration for my match of the year candidate. I don't really know if I would put this above Phantasmo versus Romero from night 9 of the tournament, but this was incredible from start to finish. It started out just feeling like it was going to be a sprint to the finish, and it ended up just being something completely different. It got into just all types of just straight up wrestling, and I was into it the entire time. There wasn't a boring moment. It didn't take me out of it at any time. I didn't feel like it was going too over the top with the spots. Shingo is just proven to be a star this entire tournament. I know technically when he first joined the junior division, everybody was kind of like, is this guy really a junior? But I think he's made it work, and he's gone unpinned, unsubmitted for 96 straight matches in New Japan. That's pretty impressive, and obviously if you've seen the match, you know how that plays into it. But him and Ospreay both are absolute stars, and they were definitely 2 of the show stealers for the tournament. And the work they did in this match is truly just, it feels like 2 artists in their prime, and they're creating art. When we come down to it, that's what pro wrestling is. It's art. And I know that this is definitely going to be a match that come the end of the year, everybody's going to be remembering Takagi versus Ospreay as definitely one of the better matches of the year. Probably one of the best. It's in my top 3 at the moment. The other 2 being El Phantasmo versus Rocky Romero and Gargano versus Cole, number 1 at TakeOver New York. But this match, it was breathtaking to watch. I didn't watch it live. That would have been 5:30 in the morning. I think the show started. I'll be doing that probably for the G1 Climax, but I wasn't going to do that for this. And I was so enthralled the entire time. Both men came out looking, again, just incredible. The Death Valley Driver, I think there were 2 of them that Takagi hit on Ospreay, looked so deadly. Just, oh my god. And I'm a big fan of Ospreay's Stormbreaker move. I know the Oscutter is a really cool move, but the Stormbreaker finisher is definitely one of the top tier finishers in wrestling. It looks great, and I was glad to see that he's still using the Hidden Blade, I think it's called, that he debuted at Wrestle Kingdom. Sadly, giving Ibushi a concussion, but it just looks so deadly. So definitely, just go check out this match if you haven't seen it yet. I'm sure some of you haven't. New Japan World, 999 yen, I think it is. It's a little cheaper than Network. Definitely worth the subscription. And if you haven't seen these 2 wrestle ever before, you're going to just have your mind blown. Even if you're not normally like an indie fan or like a New Japan fan, it's definitely worth checking out. Obviously there's some people out there that only want to watch WWE. And I get that, I was like that for a while, but it's just so refreshing to see straight up wrestling and so many fresh faces and maneuvers and styles, and it's just unbelievable to watch what these guys can do outside of the WWE. And that's not like an insult to WWE wrestlers, because some of my favorite guys are in that company, And again, they made the list. Like, look at Drew Gulak, look at Akira Tozawa if he wants, Cesaro, Ricochet. There's so many talented people in the WWE, and they have great matches over there. I don't want to take anything away from them, but there's so much more outside of the company that people are missing out. And I really just hope that if you're watching this video and you haven't seen Shingo versus Will at the finals for the Best of the Super Juniors, you need to check it out. You really won't not love it. I feel like that's just like, and even if you don't love it, I guess you'll still just be impressed just by the athleticism of both guys. So definitely check out Will Ospreay versus Shingo Takagi from the Best of the Super Juniors finals. And with all that, we are wrapping things up here. Thank you for joining me for another episode of 5 Matches to Watch. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel here on Deep Six Wrestling, and be sure to follow us on Twitter. That'll be down in the description as well. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'll be back next Thursday with another episode of 5 Matches to Watch. Until then, peace out.